Today, I want to return to the topic of phasing and minimalism. The last time we talked about this, it was in terms of electron sequencers, specifically on the digitone. And that got us close to the effects that were pioneered by the likes of Steve Reich and Basinski. But with Koala Sampler, we can get even closer by treating the app like a tape looper, where we can slow down, speed up, and slice loops to create rhythmic phasing effects. So let's get started. Here I have the Microfreak, and it's set up with a simple melodic loop and a preset patch. The implementation of that isn't an important detail, but it does help to have the sequence be fairly sparse to make room for the delayed and repeated parts. And I've got the output of the Microfreak going to a small audio interface off screen, and that's connected to my iPad over USB. So Koala will handle this as the main input device, and we don't have to record by our microphone or anything. And of course, the main output of that is going into my main mixer onto my PC, being recorded separately. Okay, so let's record a loop into Koala and grab a few bars. I'm going to make use of the dice randomization feature on the Microfreak to give some variance to the sequence and let us pick some interesting portions of it in our recordings. So I will get that playing and we can record it. Great. So now we have it recorded into Koala. We can edit the loop, and we can find some nice looping points to trim the recording down to. We'll set it to loop, give it a bit of a crossfade, make sure it keeps looping. Now, for the first technique that we're going to look at, I'm going to copy the sample, and we're going to slow this down by adjusting the pitch setting. And when we do that, we're actually changing the speed of playback. So by taking the pitch down, we'll slow down the playback of the loop. And by turning up the pitch, we're speeding up the playback of the loop. But you'll notice that by default, the pitch will snap to the nearest semitone. And that's not exactly what we want, because that'll make each loop far more out of tune from each other than we really want. We want much more subtle change so that the phasing can occur more slowly and evolve over time. So we can adjust that setting by going into Koala's settings, and we can change the pitch knob snap to semitone setting, and we'll just turn that off. So now we can go down in cents, and so we'll detune it a little bit. Anything over like 25 cents just gets way out of tune. So let's take it down by about 10 cents. So now when we start them at the same time, we'll get some new shifting and evolving patterns. We get some subtle distortion and unison and a bit of course, phasing. And they'll slowly go out of sync with each other, making some new melodic effects. So another approach we can take is simply slicing out a part of the loop. And that gets us more of a polymetric feel, much like how we created different sequences on the Digitone sequencer in a previous video. So with each sequence playing back at different lengths, the sequences are related, but they repeat at a different rate, and that creates an evolving pattern. This can work well with different recordings playing together. Play around and see what works with your own recordings. So we'll copy this original loop and we'll edit it. And we're just going to take out a few notes, hopefully making it more of an odd repeating pattern. So we'll just trim that down there. And now, if we play it at the same time, we can listen for the new patterns. Now we have a nice delayed effect, but with a lot less of the unison and phase effects that we were getting with the other approach. So you may be wondering why we can't use a similar approach to the Electron sequencer. Koala has its own sequencer after all. One limitation we have to that is that Koala's sequencer, if you have the full version, you can get into this screen. The sequencer is set to fixed bar lengths compared to Electron or many other sequencers where you can control the number of notes that are available in the bar. In Koala, you have things set to the entire bar. But you could get around this, of course, by sequencing some samples and then recording that loop into a new sample and editing it in the way that we demoed earlier in the video. So let's give that a go. We will first need to create some samples. So I will copy this loop to a new page, and we will crop down the main loop that we've been working on, and we can go to Sample Tools and Chop. Nice. And we'll make them one shot. We'll chop them up. Great, so now we have a bunch of samples. And we can sequence them. So go into the sequencer and scroll down to section D. That's where our main samples are for this. And let's just put a few samples in, and we can see how that sounds. Make a couple bars of this, perhaps. I will copy this loop and make edit the duplicate, and we can take out some of the samples. So we have a shorter piece. And then we'll select our first loop, go to the menu and resample loop, which puts it down there. And our second loop, we can resample that. So now we have two loops. And we'll go into the edit menu and just make sure that we can trim down first loop. Now I'll select both loops, make sure that they actually loop, and on hold, and then we can see how that sounds. And there you have it. There's a few approaches and things you can try to get tape loop and phasing effects with Koala Sampler. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.